Hi, hi everyone, and this is the first time I'm going to have a go at doing a channel for YouTube. My area of chatting is holiday experiences, holidays that I've been on, holiday places I want to go to when we're eventually allowed to travel again, and crazy things that have happened on holiday. If you only want to look at this once and think it's not for you, then that's fine. But if you'd like to subscribe and get weekly uploads from me, then that is interesting. It will always be in groups of the country. So every week I will do a listing from when I was in that country. And at the end, then I'll give you a little bit of notice and then we'll go on to the next country. I've traveled pretty extensively, so there's quite a bit to see, but I hope it keeps you interested and that the shenanigans and craziness that happens to me on holidays every single time will keep you entertained through these other interesting times that we are living through right now. Um, this one, because I haven't, I just wanted to have a go and see how this would work. I will just tell you a little bit about a trip that I did to Vanuatu. I went with a friend of mine who stayed with us during the 1993 bushfires in Australia. She got stuck here. She was from England, and which probably was one of the favorite parts of her holiday here. But when we were all safely and out of that, her family were expats over there, and her father was in aviation. So she said, "Oh, let's go. We can stay." And I was very young, and my parents said, "Oh, do you want a birthday party or do you want to go to Vanuatu?" And there wasn't much of a question there. I just packed my bags and headed for the airport before they could change their minds, quite frankly. But in the event, it was quite an eventful holiday because flying in, this was a long, long time ago in Vanuatu, and they didn't actually have an airport then, which I found absolutely hysterical because I'd been traveling all around Europe by that point. And, to fly a very big plane with a lot of people into it onto a grassy field was something else for me because I kept looking out the window and I was seeing nothing. There was a whole lot of nothing. And I'm just like, where are we going to land? There doesn't seem to be an airport. And my friend pointed out the window and said, "Oh, no, see that cleared strip there? That's the landing strip." I went, "Oh, good." She said, "Yeah, it usually takes us a couple of go rounds to get onto the airport because they have to call the flight, the air flight controller, and he has to go out and chase all the cows off the field before you land." And I said, "Right, that sounds okay." And on our second loop round, we could actually see a man with a very big stick chasing the cows off the actual landing strip, which was a bit of a problem. But we ended up getting there. That was okay. So we landed, and it did feel like we were shot down rather than landed because there was no flat bits. We were just ruts and craziness that was happening as you land in the middle of a paddock with a 747. And then we got out in the middle of the paddock, and the stewardess just pulled open the cargo hold, as you do, and all the bags just fell out because they had moved slightly. And then we just had to go through all the luggage and pick out our own luggage and then walk up the paddock to a little tin shed. And the little tin shed was actually the airport. That was great. It was great. Immigration. So if you were a native, you went around the corner and you didn't actually stop. But if you were an incoming tourist, you walked through the tin shed. And yeah, and there was a guy there that welcomed you to Vanuatu, put a little stamp on your passport, which was in the days before electronic everything everywhere. And then you just carried on across more paddock until you got to the dirt road, which led to the airport. Yeah, we can call it an airport. There was a plane there. We can do that. So then there was a taxi there waiting for us that kind of looked like one of the vehicles in that James Bond movie with the bus. I think it's Live and Let Die or something like that. It was crazy. And that then we went into um, Port Vila, and that was lovely. Port Vila was a lovely little village, and it was really quite sweet because there was a little market in the middle of town, and all the fresh produce and things like that. It was wonderful. It was just wonderful, and we were staying at a little place up on the hills, and we went up there, and that was lovely too. And we had dinner and we went to bed and good. The next morning, my friend's mother was saying that the gardener and the housekeeper were late, and she couldn't understand why they were late. And eventually, they were supposed to start at 8 or something. Apparently, like at 9 or 9:30, they showed up, and she said to them, what? Why are you so late today? What happened? What was going on? And apparently, the gardener, who was 80, and his wife, who was 75, they didn't own a car. And so, if you've ever been to Port Vila on one of those big cruise ships now, you will know that you go in through a headland, and there's a huge big bay that you go into. And he lived on the other side of the bay, and apparently the tide was coming in, and he was coming across. And apparently, it takes you a bit longer to paddle your canoe from one side of the headland to the other when the tide's coming in, as you do. So then, we did that, and I just went down, and he was in a little dugout canoe, like a proper cut down a tree, hollow it out, stick it in the water, get yourself another bit of a tree, stick it in the water, and off you go. And he was 80, and he did that every day. Every day he would paddle across to go to work, and every day he would paddle back to go home. And and he had his wife in the canoe this time as well, which apparently takes more as well because she doesn't paddle; she just sits there, as you do. So that was my first introduction to Port Vila, and after that we because I was only there for a week or so, we went around and we did a lot of swimming and a lot of all that sort of stuff, and went out to the islands, and that was all beautiful, and it was all the normal sort of tropical things that are in places like that. So there's palm trees and coconuts and beautiful white sands and beaches that go on for miles, and it was all, and it was all wonderful. And then my friend's father decided to take us on a bit of an adventure, and he took us round to the other side of the island, which was called Black Sands Beach. And when we got there, there was a shipwreck and everything, and it was a stinking hot day with 300% humidity, and it was just horrific. And so I've gone to the end of the ship because you could walk out because it was right up to the beach. And I plonked myself down on the end and stuck my feet in the water. And I was just having a little bit of a play. And all of a sudden, my friend's father came racing out onto the thing, grabbed me literally by the scruff of the neck and dragged me out of the water. And I'm like, what is the problem here? Why are you so crazy? And then he pointed to some fins that had been circling, and I'm like, yeah, look, the dolphins had come in. And he's like, yeah, not dolphins, they're sharks, very big sharks, and you'd be legless if we managed to get you out of the water fast enough for there to still be legs left. So don't be swimming here, that's not a good plan. And I just went, oh, okay. And that was the end of my swimming adventure on Black Sands Beach. But we also went to the polo club, which was fantastic. And it was just like the one that the two fat ladies go to when they're in Jamaica. So it was all terribly English, but terribly, you know, tropical island at the same time. So that was terribly amusing. I had a wonderful afternoon at the polo, watching them go round and round because, of course, her father was a bit posh and was a member of the polo club, being English and all. And that that was very nice. And then after a couple more days of exploring around the beach, like going to Iroquois Island, you can walk across at low tide. It's just a little in the middle of a little bay that's surrounded by more little islands, and it's got a tourist resort on it. And so we decided to walk across. The only problem was is that we got a bit carried away with the time. We're having such a wonderful time there. We didn't get back, and so had to swim across with our stuff strapped to the top of our heads so everything didn't get wet, because I was okay because I could walk on the bottom and my chin was still above the water, but my friend was very short, so I had to carry all her stuff and drag her because she wasn't terribly big and kept getting washed away. So that was another bit of an adventure. But all in all, my time in Vanuatu was hilarious because taking off was just as big a adventure and leaving as getting there, because we left on a night flight. And so the guy had gone out. So while we were carrying, so the getting off the island was the same. If you were a tourist leaving, you walked back through the little tin shed and got another stamp, while everybody else just wandered across. You took your own bags and threw it in the plane, as you do. There's no customs or anything back then. Um, and then I stood watching before I got on the plane. So the guy had already chased the cows off the paddock, so he thought ahead enough to do that. And then he went around, and there was a whole lot of 44-gallon drums up each side of the airfield. And so after he chased the cows off, his next job was to run along with a flaming piece of rag on a stick and set the drums, whatever was in the drums, on fire. So they were the takeoff runway lights, so the plane didn't crash into the bushes on takeoff, and because we were in a field, and because it had rained a little bit during the day, and cows are very inconvenient, rude things like that, and tend to squish in mud. So then it had dried, and so now it was bumpy as well as rutty. And so we had a bit of turbulence, which had nothing to do with air on takeoff. And it really was a lot of fun because we were bouncing up and down, laughing hysterically, watching all the 44-gallon drums on fire speeding past us as we took off. So yeah, we had an uneventful flight coming home, but it is one of the more memorable trips that I made as a youngster, because all the rest of the places were first world and very, very, very complicated and sophisticated and all this sort of thing. But that was my first sojourn into third world. It just kind of happens like this, and everybody deals with it. So that was great. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed this. Like I said, if you watch this and it's not for you, and you really don't think that you're going to enjoy this, feel free to swipe right and never watch this again. But if you do find this mildly entertaining, and you can't wait to hear of the at least one international incident that usually happens to me in some bizarre place, I would be more than happy to keep in touch and keep you up to date and entertained when you've got nothing else better to do on a Sunday afternoon but dive down the rabbit hole of YouTube. All right, have a good week. Bye.